It began just as you see here.
Do you know what you have just done? You have transferred us in time and space, and I hadn't even set the controls. Now I don't know where we are. We could be anywhere in the universe, and at any time.
Yes, this is how it began. The adventure that started by accident, taking us out of this time and place to a lost planet.
Who's there? Who's there?
Come with us into that strange new world. I cannot guarantee your safety, but I can promise you unimagined thrills.
You have invaded the world of the Daleks.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattle.
Choose a side in the Clone Wars.
Welcome to Prattle World. I'm your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan. And in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to Clone Wars, where two similar pieces of media clash to be crowned champion. Two go in, and only one comes out. And today, join us on a journey beyond time and space, not into the world of the mighty Boosh, but into the world and the multiple worlds and the multiple interpretations of Doctor Who. And I have brought on a man who is no stranger to the Who-niverse, if you will. It is Sean Mason, who is an old friend and is currently the writer of Cutaway Comics, Paradise Towers, Paradise Found, which is Doctor Who-related media. Hello, Sean. I know it's been a while since you've been on the podcast.
It has. Hello. Thanks for having me and letting me plug some stuff.
Absolutely. Well, why? Well, let's.
I thought I'm not going to hide it. No, I can't hide it.
No, be blatant
about it. Hide it. Yeah.
We're gonna plug away, and why not? You've had your first 3 issues are now out and available to go and buy. I will leave the link in the show notes so people can go and do that. Even I haven't bought them yet, but I will be doing the second we finish this podcast, and I'll binge the hell out of them. But why don't you tell us a little bit about that comic and the original kind of show and an idea it was based on?
Yeah, great. So Paradise Towers was a 7th Doctor adventure, and the one that really started to kind of solidify what they wanted to do with Sylvester McCoy's Doctor. It's a little darker, but it's still quite fun. They ditched a lot of the lore and continuity that had been built up, and not ignored it, but they were just like, this is bogging the show down, so let's just get back to adventures and romps and seeing where we can take our stories. And the script editor Andrew Cartmel was a big fan of comics, 2000 AD, all of the stuff that was happening, and there's a real sense of that in the original Paradise Towers, which was written by Stephen Wyatt, who is just a lovely human being. And it's set in a world where there's this huge tower block, a whole group of people have been off to war, and the people who've been moved to the tower block are the old residents, these caretakers who were meant to be older, kind of home guard-esque. It's not necessarily who was cast. And these young girls who have formed their own girl gangs or kangs. And there's this sort of Halo Jones-esqueness to that. But it's almost kind of like the opposite. Where did they go? Nowhere. What did they do? Nothing. Because, and they have to create their own adventures, really. Then you have Pex, who was meant to be this parody of Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger style characters. And again, was a case of great ideas. Casting didn't necessarily match the intention. And but it's a wonderful story. And you can see a lot of what Russell T Davies would do later in that kind of tone. That there's satire in there, a little bit of politics, maybe a bit of commentary, but just ideas and great imagery and fun stories. And it's a brilliant world that Stephen created. So for Cutaway Comics, we went to Stephen and we said, hey, we think there's more stories to tell in this world. And Stephen owns the rights to that. And actually, we'll probably talk about that later in kind of rights ownership.
Yes, actually, yeah.
You know, Terry Nation and the Daleks. And so we went to Stephen and we said, hey, we want to tell more stories and adventures in this world. And he was more than happy to work with us on that. So I developed a story. It's at 20-ish years later. It's kind of the next generation of Kangs. Seemingly all of their problems have been fixed, because surely that's what happens once the Doctor leaves. Well, actually, in the serial, kind of the world's still messed. Like the immediate problem was fixed, but actually that society is still pretty messed up. There's a lot of work still to be done. So it's kind of what happened next, and again, commentary on how younger generations now are dealing with things that the older generations thought they'd dealt with and we thought we'd fixed, and the world's going to be a better place now, and actually it's not. And we keep doing, as a society, we tend to try and do the easy thing because it sounds like it'll be good for us, but ultimately it's not always what is best for us, and sometimes the harder decisions are the ones that we need to make to restructure our world and make it work for everyone. So it's about that, but it's also about fun and adventure and it's Doctor Who, and so there's lots of Doctor Who adjacent, so there's lots of running down corridors and action sequences and killer robots, and anything else I could say would be a spoiler. So
okay.
Yeah,
Well, we'll keep it under wraps. But
do check it out. And I probably shouldn't announce it, but I'm already working on a second one.
Right.
Oh, well, I've said it.
You said it. If you need me to, I'm happy to cut it out. But yeah, I can leave that in as a little exclusive. But that sounds amazing.
Unless the sales of issue 4 go really badly, there's a second one coming.
Well, I'm buying all 3 issues today, and I will be buying 4, and I'll be buying the whole series, and then the next one as well, because it sounds like that sounds right up my alley in regards to what I'm into, kind of sci-fi wise and kind of Doctor Who wise, and the artwork looks really fantastic. Who does the art?
It's a guy called Silvano Bertramo is our artist, and he's just brilliant. Like, I wrote the script during lockdown. He drew it. Like, he got things turned around so quickly. So it was really nice during lockdown or second lockdown as the year went on.
All of them rolled into one.
The email. I just get emails every week with pages and pages of artwork, which are just really exciting. And then we have Andrew Orton is our colorist, and he's just made it pop. And then Colin Brockhurst is our letterer, and he's also done some really great things with it. So I couldn't really have asked for a better team for this book that have just really understood the assignment of the world and how it should look and how it should feel. And yeah, it's just been really fun.
Sounds amazing. That's quite an interesting idea, that the Doctor comes in and shakes up the status quo, which he does in pretty much every episode of Doctor Who and all these different worlds and what have you. And what's interesting to me is how it's kind of almost a little reckless as well, because there's like a power vacuum, and if it's the Daleks or the Cybermen or something, they're controlling that world particularly. They stop the threat or something. Yeah, what happens after? So I that's always quite an interesting idea. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I'll try and hunt down the original episodes as well, see if I can watch that as well.
Yeah, do that. I think it is one of the best Sylvester McCoy stories. I think it's really fun. I think it sets the tone for everything that comes after it. I think everyone involved will admit that some of the ideas aren't pulled off fantastically because due to budgetary reasons or whatever. And that's great about doing it in comics, that kind of full circle thing as well. Andrew Cartmel loved comics. He was giving them to writers saying, hey, I just want big sci-fi ideas, drawing from everywhere. And now it's a comic again. I think is really nice. And I was also really careful that, because if you're doing this, you're doing a sequel to something 30 odd years later, how many years it's been, and you want old fans to love it, but you also want new fans to discover it as well. So if you haven't seen the original, although you should, everything you're going to need to know is in the first couple of pages, and you can just kind of pick it up and run with it. And that was very deliberate.
Oh, of course, yeah. No, I think that was the smart thing to do. You know what they say: everybody's comic book, somebody's comic book is this comic book is everybody's first comic book. Whatever that phrase is, I forget it, but yeah.
I know the one you mean.
so yeah, you kind of do need to kind of seed that idea and kind of give a little bit of a prologue to your story. But it sounds excellent and it sounds like a lot of fun. So again, I'll leave a link in the description for the comic. Go pick it up. Cutaway Comics as well. Follow them. Follow Sean as well on his social medias as well. I will leave those in the link as well. But yes, so good. So obviously that your story does not feature Doctor Who. Just to make that aware, it's not a Doctor Who official comic. It is based on the writer. The writers, I think you told me this, that the writers own the rights to their world.
Yeah, so it's
characters they create within them, but not Doctor Who and his stuff.
It's from the worlds of BBC's Doctor Who, and we can say that. But yeah, the Doctor doesn't appear. I mean, we can't name them
in the book
in
either.
the book.
Yeah, fully. Yeah,
we can refer to events, but it has to be
sure.
But, in the same way, like when characters jump in and out of Marvel ownership. And,
yeah, true.
And you can and can't refer to what happened at certain points.
Yes, we know there's a bloke from Atlantis, but we won't specifically name him. Things like that. Yeah. I absolutely, I totally get that. But yeah, just I just wanted to say that just in case people are going in expecting to see the Doctor in there, just to make them aware. But it still sounds like a really creative and fruitful universe that you're having the opportunity and the joy to kind of play around with.
Yeah, well, if there wasn't something to do with it, I wouldn't have done it. As there had to be a story that I could find that was interesting, that was relevant to people now, and was fun and worth telling. So there's definitely loads to play with in that world, and it is Stephen's world, and he was involved in. He'd give notes. He, from the story through to the scripting, and I've met him a couple of times, and we email and chat a lot. And there's a phrase in the show, which is also in the comic, which is "build high for happiness," which is kind of their saying, their motto, and that's become our sign off on all of our emails. So the way it works with ownership, and this probably links into what we're talking about today, is in the UK, you own, or certainly back then, I'm not sure how much the world has changed, particularly now that streaming and closer ties with American production companies. This is probably a matter for a whole other podcast, the ins and outs of rights and...
Yeah, well, I think nowadays it is owning the rights to those characters or those properties, which are a big either box office draw or streaming draw. It's not. We're not necessarily looking for like big name actors or something like that. It is the book rights or the comic rights or things like that. So and there's been a lot of court cases. Like Disney had one recently with the Predator that's only just been resolved. So it's still a very big issue, kind of copyright.
Well, that's it. I think in America it's assumed that once you give it to the studio, it's the studio's, whatever you've created, but you should still get credited. So even if there's a new Predator film, it will still say based on characters created by, if you've got a good agent. And no, I think it should always say that. But in the UK, if you created something, you created the world, it was yours, and the characters you created, they were yours. It's the same like the Stormtrooper beer. Have you seen the Stormtrooper?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So that is not officially licensed to Lucasfilm. But the guy who designed Stormtroopers, British designer, British film crew, so he owns those designs. So that's why that Stormtrooper beer exists. But because Lucasfilm probably aren't going to put
out a beer
for the
hey
kids to drink.
Hey kids, have a beer.
But yeah, anyways, so this, I don't know how interesting this is to people, but it is fascinating, the
ins and outs
of it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it is fascinating. It is good that, and again, I think we'll probably get onto this in a little bit, but the fact that these writers, I think I read the other day as well, that the Daleks have to be featured in at least every series of Doctor Who or something. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is, but it seems like it. Like they are fairly constant. It's again, so Terry Nation, I'll get this as accurate as I can remember. Beryl Virtue, the late great Beryl Virtue, was his agent or the producer, and she made sure that he got co-creator rights of the Daleks. So the Terry Nation estate own the Daleks. So if they want to use the Daleks, the BBC have to go to the estate. And I think to bring them back, the rumor was that there was a deal that they had to be featured in the same way that like Fox kept making Fantastic Four movies.
Yes, enabled to keep using them.
Use them or lose them. So it's why Bob Baker, again, late great Bob Baker, who also wrote some books for Cutaway Comics. We always go to the creators first, like if to see if they want to write the comic, and if they don't, then someone else will write it. So Bob Baker, creator of many great characters, most famously K9. So he owned that character. That's why there was a K9 series that was made by an Australian production company. There was another K9 series or movie in the works. I don't know what the state of that is now, sadly, after Bob's passing. But he was a lovely bloke as well. Writers are great.
They certainly are, just like you. You are great, Sean. You are great.
Oh, thank you. That's not why I said it. But I was at a Doctor Who convention recently, and I selling the book, and I did realise that I don't think more than anything, Doctor Who fans love the writers. And I think part of that is also because so many of those writers would then write the Target novelizations, which would then so much a part of people's childhood. Like with Star Wars, I love Star Wars, but I can't imagine many Star Wars, like the writers of The Mandalorian, other than Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, going to a convention and people being like, I've got to go meet this person. Like the fandom doesn't treat writers and revere them in that same way. But with Doctor Who, definitely it's lovely.
Well, I mean, that's always the modern complaint with Doctor Who series. Obviously, there's been a lot of announcements. Recently, they've cast a new Doctor Who, the upcoming Doctor after the Jodie Whittaker's regeneration. That will be the Doctor. I'm blanking on their name. I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head, but they've also announced that David Tennant and Catherine Tate are coming back this week. Actually,
the announcements have been really fun. It's been interesting that we've had those announcements so early, and I can only assume that they've been official announcements because they knew because there's been set photos leaked. I think they must have known if they were doing exterior shots in Cardiff, people are going to make the link. Let's just announce it now. And someone else, Sophie Howes, who's a great artist, as I saw she tweeted earlier, that she wonders if there is more that we're not going to know. if they're prepared to let us know this now, what they're keeping secret.
Interesting.
And I think we're in for a real treat with the specials. I really hope Jodie gets a good send-off. I think she's been fabulous in the role. I haven't agreed with every creative decision that the series has gone in, but I think she's been great.
Yeah, I've not caught much of Jodie's version. I'm not great with TV. I'm a binger really, so I tend to like sit down and go, right, this is it. But I will say, Mandip Gill, who's one of the assistants, back in the day, back at university, I was in The Crucible with her. We did the Crucible, and the year above was Mandip's year, and I was a small part in the Crucible, so that was pretty cool. So it was nice to see her go from Hollyoaks and to onto Doctor Who, and the University of Central Lancashire, which was my university, is constantly going, look at our success story. She's a lovely person as well, like absolutely. Just lovely, absolutely lovely from bottom to top. Great. I bumped into her a few years ago on like Oxford Street as well. It was really nice to see her again. But yeah, wonderful person and an amazing actor. Yeah, brilliant. It's just nice to see somebody I know like attain that sort of kind of success. But yes, let's segue onto our discussion. So we're going to compare the Doctor, but not really the Doctor.
Not really.
So we'll get into that and everything. But I just wanted to say that I'm not as big a Doctor Who kind of aficionado as yourself, which is why I wanted to get you on specifically. So I mostly have watched the kind of Christopher Eccleston stuff. I've watched all of the David Tennant stuff as well. And then I've watched a smattering of the Matt Smith stuff and a bit of the Capaldi stuff and a bit of Jodie as well. And I always love Doctor Who. I always like the ideas, I like everything behind it. Like it always kind of, it always interests me, excites me. But again, I'm not great for just sitting down and regularly watching a TV show. I find it a bit, I get distracted or I want to watch something else. And then even great TV, I don't regularly go back to, which is a shame. Sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I should go back and watch. Like Cobra Kai was amazing. Still haven't finished it.
I've not even started.
Oh, there you go.
Well, I mean, this is sad. I've actually found though that weekly releases of stuff, I've gone the opposite of binging. If you drop something all at once, and I've got 10 hours of stuff to watch, I'm like, we're not going to have 10 hours. I don't have 10 hours. Oh wait, every Friday I know I'm going to get a new episode of this. Brilliant. I've actually. My streaming experience, I've gone right back to
old school
TV.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say as well, like the person who kind of turned me back in, tried to get me to watch it was a mutual friend of ours, improviser, actor, Ian Hales. You know Ian, don't you? Yeah. So I worked with him at Alton Towers and we did a few improvisation workshops and stuff. And we did a performance as well. I'm not as seasoned as you or Ian as an improviser, but I thought I did all right. I held my own, I think. But you guys are, top level, top class. And he basically said, yeah, get into it. And I absolutely love the Tennant version. I think it was so hard for me to because that was such a solid Doctor Who for me. I think it was hard for me. Not that I hate the Matt Smith stuff or the Jodie or the Capaldi stuff. It's kind of been hard for me to transition into the other Doctors because it was such a good, solid run for me.
Well, it's interesting. It's kind of following a similar path to the original series in that David Tennant is kind of New Who's Tom Baker. Everyone loves Tom Baker. Everyone, probably has a favourite Tom Baker story that they remember, or they really connected with that. It was just fun and exciting. There was a little bit of more Gallifrey stuff and more lore coming into it. And that was really exciting. It had depth and adventure, and it was funny, and some great drama as well. Some really nice dramatic scenes. And Tennant is he had that popularity, not just in the UK, but in America and beyond. So then after that, everything kind of gets a little bit more bogged down with continuity and lore, and people start dropping off because either don't like this Doctor as much or that Doctor. And then eventually the show just kind of needs to reboot. It's almost been back as long as, like, what, 25th anniversary was... Were they on the 5th Doctor at that point? And we're getting on for 20 years of Doctor Who being back.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
No, give or take a few years. We're not far off it. So it's been around for a long time now. So it almost feels weird to call it New Who.
Yeah.
Like there's stuff
or modern Who
that really is starting to feel not so far removed from the classic stuff.
But yeah, let's get back onto the topic of discussion. So let's talk about Doctor Who and the Daleks from 1965, the first time the Doctor was presented in colour and in widescreen in a theatrical film. But it is not the Doctor as we know it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this film, first of all?
Yeah, so Doctor and the Daleks is a really interesting case of, again, someone just getting the rights to something. Terry Nation is credited in the opening titles. As the Daleks were probably the most popular thing. The Daleks are what cemented Doctor Who's success. It was originally intended as a way to tell adventure stories with an educational element. That was the idea. So you could travel in time and space, we could teach history and science and all this stuff. And within 5 episodes, they were like the Daleks, big evil robots, big sci-fi ideas, and that's what made it popular. That was the moment when people kind of paid attention to the show, and then the producers of these films also paid attention. And they loved what they saw, and this film is almost a direct adaptation of the original Daleks adventure, like more or less beat for beat. But they changed elements. They made, first of all, the Doctor is the Doctor. Doctor Who is a question. Whereas in the film, they are Doctor Who. And they are definitely human, and they live on Earth. Whereas we would later find out in the TV series that actually was from the planet Gallifrey and had 2 hearts and was very alien. And they abandoned that for the films. I'm trying to remember how much of that lore had been established at that point. But I think, again, it was a case of let's just scrap, because the films were intended for an international audience as much as they were for the audience here in the UK. So they scrapped everything that would complicate it, just got on with telling their version of this story. You know, we're talking about clones, you know, we're comparing these 2 films, which are very similar in plot. You know, you could even multiply that and then compare it with the originals.
Absolutely, yeah. Because much like your comic, they are based on those original episodes that the BBC, the serials that they made. So that would make sense. But I don't know if this was a very last minute one, because obviously
I don't have that.
I don't think either of us have that time.
Well, this is when, you know, a story could go on for 4, 6, or even 8 parts. I'm trying to remember what the longest. I want to say the War Games is longer than 8 parts, but I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've watched it. But yeah, so they condense it into this film, and they ditch any continuity that the audience or a new audience wouldn't need.
Of course, yeah. And it does the first film. So we're going to compare Doctor Who and the Daleks from 1965 and Daleks Invasion of Earth 2150 AD, I believe is the title. Yes, Invasion Earth 2150 AD from the following year, 1966. So before we get into that first film, I should have done this earlier, but we got into a nice.
Got into it. We got into it.
Got into it. So I will do it now. So the reasons for comparison are that both films were produced by Amicus Productions. So we did cover Amicus very recently on the podcast, doing the Tales of the Crypt and the Vault of Horror with Dennis. And however, it doesn't appear in the credits because it's co-financed, and we'll also get into who it's co-financed by. Both films were written by Milton Subotsky, again of Amicus Productions, both produced by Subotsky and Max F. Rosenberg, again of Amicus Productions, both directed by Gordon Fleming, and both films feature the cinematography from John Wilcox, both filmed at Shepperton Studios, both were released a year apart. Both films star Peter Cushing as Doctor Who and Roberta Tovey as his granddaughter Susan. Both films are based on previous Doctor Who television serials by Terry Nation and BBC, and both films are considered non-canon in the Doctor Who continuity.
They are the never say never again of Doctor
Who. Just less terrible wigs, I think. I think the wigs are pretty good in this, actually. But anyway, yes, Doctor Who and the Daleks. So, was there, like you were saying, they were condensed this particular film? Did they alter the characters in any way, or were they basically the same?
Susan is younger in the film. More on that when we get into the second film. And Ian and Barbara in the film, Barbara is also related to Doctor Who. She also calls him Grandad, but they are both Susan's teachers in the serial, in the original, and they stumble across it because they're concerned about what this kid is getting up to, and seems to live in a junkyard. It turns out that's where the TARDIS is staying.
I guess it's kind of they do very much simplify it, and it's very much you're off to the races in this one.
It cracks along at a fair old pace.
Absolutely.
There's no messing about in this. And actually, what I loved is that opening shot in the house, to the point that I might even teach this to next time I'm teaching. And once one of my many jobs, I also teach at university, and which is why I sound tired. And and it just the character beat in that opening shot is superb of Susan, or Susie as she is often referred to, reading the science book, and Barbara is reading the science book, and then we pull back and Doctor Who is reading a copy of Eagle comic.
Yeah, I love that.
Is a brilliant character, and it actually nails who the character is. I don't necessarily know if it nails the tone of what William Hartnell did with Doctor Who, but Cushing is a different Doctor, but it absolutely gets that tone, certainly of what would come later. Of yes, he loves science, but he loves big ideas, and he's fun and playful. I thought that was just a lovely. You've told me everything I need to know about this family dynamic in one shot. It's just lovely.
I agree. I got a sense of that, and as the Doctor was known, I believe the William Hartnell version he's a bit more irascible. He's a bit more grumpy.
Yes, there's a darker edge to him that occasionally comes out with Cushing, but certainly in this first film, he's a bit more just of a bumbling old,
doddering old fool kind of. He's a bit. Oh yes,
he's an eccentric.
Yeah, he's an eccentric.
He's an eccentric
inventor, scientist. And he's like, yep, very good. And when it's not talking science, he's a bit awkward or a bit, clumsy or not quite sure what's going on. He's like I love that bit where Roy Castle of Record Breakers comes in with the flowers, and gives them to the Doctor, and he goes, "Oh, these are lovely, thank you."
Yes.
he's like, no, they're
for Barbara.
Barbara. And he's like, "Oh yes, of course, silly me."
All that stuff's great. And what's interesting is Ian Chesterton in the series, he's kind of more like very much just the action hero, whereas here he is more of a reluctant hero, comic foil. Really, he's the comic relief of the ordinary bloke coming into this family who have been building a time machine in their back garden. And so it's Roy Castle in the first one, and then Bernard Cribbins plays a similar role in the second one.
That's correct.
And I was talking to my partner about them, and she was saying, well, they kind of played similar roles in the Carry On films as well. They could do the comedic pratfalling, but they were also capable of being the slightly dashing, everyman, heroic lead when they were called upon to be. So it's interesting as well, just comparing those performances.
Oh yeah, and obviously Bernard Cribbins came back to Doctor Who.
Yes, proper Doctor Who, official Doctor Who,
proper official Doctor Who. Sorry, we'll make sure. Don't want to get anybody mad. As the Donna's grandfather as well,
and was superb in it.
Oh yeah, that scene where he cries is absolutely.
Oh, don't! You'll set me off.
I have a friend who, like, anything with sad old men, she's in bits. And on that occasion, I was like, yeah, I'm in bits too. Yeah, I'm definitely in bits.
That reveal as well, the 4 knocks. I mean, I was about to say spoilers, but you've had almost 10 years or more to watch this.
Absolutely. And even I was late to it. And I still know.
But that build up where the Doctor knew that the 4 knocks, you're going to die, you're going to regenerate. And the fact that it was Wilf trapped in the containment, nuclear. Oh, that was just so heartbreaking.
Oh God.
Brilliantly, the two of them just brilliantly acted. It was great material, great actors. It was just brilliant drama, and I was really angry with my stepsister, half sister. Yes, I'm trying to remember how that works. We were watching it at my dad's house. It was on New Year's Day, and she changed the channel.
What?
And my dad, she sat on it. She sat on the remote.
Right, by mistake. Okay.
By mistake. And my dad says he has never seen me move so fast.
Wow.
Before or since. Luckily, it was before that scene, but it was. Anyway, back to the film.
Back to the film. So he comes in. They show off TARDIS, not the TARDIS.
Yes, they keep referring to as TARDIS, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. They kind of don't really explain the police box thing either.
No.
But I really did love how, like, there's parts of this particular, the first film, Doctor Who and the Daleks, where it did get very much like a Star Trek vibe, the early Star Trek.
I was making notes as I went, and I just wrote Star Trek TOS.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
especially
real
with
Star Trek vibes.
When you see the Thals, the other group of surviving on Planet Skaro, which they don't say is Planet Skaro, but they do say in the second film it was Planet Skaro, which is the home of the Daleks, for those uninitiated. But yeah, I think it was just the colour and everything that's popping, and it's got very 60s as well.
Very 60s.
And I'm sure, I don't know if it was Star Trek out at this point, and had it been out, or...
Yeah, Star Trek and Doctor Who started around the same time. It's quite a busy old month. Because and JFK got assassinated. So it was
and that's its own sci-fi story.
As its own story. Yeah, I really got a Star Trek vibe off this.
Huge, yeah. And I kind of love that it's kind of like they just, again, they kind of just go, oh, well, Roy Castle is obviously the clumsy one. I was saying that the Doctor was clumsy, but actually it's the Roy Castle is clumsy, constantly falling into things, falling over stuff.
Yeah, he gets a lot of wacky moments and some slightly sped up slapstick moments.
Yeah, there was a bit. Some of it worked for me, and some of it really, like, I was like, okay, not every scene needs this, Yes. Not every scene needs him going whoa, and falling over and into something. But it does seem to do that. But they travel to the planet Skaro. It's not particularly said what time, and they wake up in this. They open the door of the TARDIS, and I was saying earlier that how I love the 60s. I love that how it looks like it has been built by an eccentric scientist on the inside. It does look like it's very cheaply put together.
I was
and wires hanging.
Disappointed.
Oh no!
The TARDIS. I loved it in the second one. But I thought in the first one, because it was so busy and there's wires everywhere, it's actually the problem I have with the current Doctor's TARDIS, is it just feels cramped. It feels small. Yes, I know it's obviously bigger than it is on the outside, but it still feels tight. I was tight, and I was kind of hoping, because I'd never actually seen this one before. I'd seen Invasion Earth, but I hadn't seen the first one. Until we decided to do this, and the reveal, I was kind of hoping if you're doing it on film, give me a bigger. You could have they really could have played with that scope.
Sure, absolutely.
And the scale of it. And then I was like, right. And then suddenly I had this amazing what if, like, if that TARDIS, if they'd got Ken Adams in, he did the James Bond sets to design the film TARDIS, that would have been amazing. And there's a little bit of that kind of Adamy kind of design in with the Daleks. I mean, the Dalek sets are quite big, and there's a sense of scale there. But it's a shame that this first one didn't really ever feel like we. The whole film was clearly shot on a set.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like there's a corridor on Skaro which made me laugh because it's just literally the decoration for the hallway is just like metallic paper they've just hung up, and they've not even like plastered, like painted it on or plastered it on. It's literally they put a bit of like metallic foil on a hook, and that's how they decorate the hallway. I
mean, I love a good 4K restoration as anyone else, but sometimes it does reveal some of the cracks.
Speaking of the 4K restoration, we've timed this quite well because Studio Canal are actually releasing both of these films not only on 4K Blu-ray, but they are also releasing them theatrically. So on the 10th of July, the BFI in London are going to show a double bill of both. So yes, and with the guests as well. So Roberta Tovey is coming, and Jill Curzon from the second one. The assistant director, Anthony Wayne, is coming, and director Gordon Fleming's son, Jason Fleming, will be there as well. So, which is really cool. And there's a book coming out in September, the official story of the films, Doctor Who and the Daleks, by filmmaker John Walsh as well. So these films are having a resurgence. So I hope we're part of this wave that's coming.
I do think they are fun films. I was just a little bit disappointed with the TARDIS.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I will say the Daleks, I think, look brilliant.
They do, yeah.
They are so colourful as well, like so bright and vibrant, which kind of obviously offsets their kind of darker tone and their mutated inner bodies, and everything that they represent as well. Because, like you were saying, like Doctor Who does have a lot of commentary in it. I know people complain about politics; it's all about politics now, but art is political, inherently political.
Oh, it's like someone has said, "Oh, I'll stop watching Doctor Who after it got political," and someone replied, "Oh, was that after the policeman walked past the junkyard in the opening shot?" You know, like the Daleks were increasingly Nazi, fascist.
Oh yeah.
Allegories. There were later revelations about the Dalek, and Genesis of the Dalek is a superb Tom Baker story, and that's about genocide, and you find out more about the history of the Daleks and the Files and the Khaleds, which you could probably guess where that, if you can do anagrams, where that story went.
I wonder who they might turn out to be. But yeah, definitely I can see that. They're kind of presenting this strong kind of indestructible fascist shell, this image, even though on the inside they're these hateful, hideous beings. It's obvious to anybody, as the nose on your face. And if you're not seeing those allegories of the commentary, then if you are just watching it sci-fi, fair enough. But if you want to discuss things deeper and more intellectually, why not?
Well, Peter Cushing's Doctor even hints at that. He talks about, why do they want to destroy us? Because they just hate, and that's all they want to do. It's a shame as well that Cushing in either film doesn't get like a big speech as the Doctor.
Yeah, I mean that's the closest you get is where he's talking about them, and he's convincing these pacifists to basically commit genocide themselves in the end.
Yeah, well, to join the fight, and the way he manipulates them is like, okay, fine, take the girl. We'll sell her to the Daleks and they'll give us what we need. He goes, no, and they fight. He goes, so you will fight for something. That was very Doctor. As this idea of the Doctor kind of weaponizes their companions, and there's a mysteriousness to them, which is very much lacking in Cushing's take.
Yeah.
And I think because they've stripped so much of that mystery out of who he is, so to have that moment where there's a slightly more calculating, darker side, even though he's doing it for the best of intentions to prove a point, I wanted more of that throughout.
Oh, definitely. I think so too. I think, in a way, making him this inventor does make him a bit more relatable on in some aspects, but also I think it also strips the Doctor of everything that's interesting about him as well, unfortunately. And I think Peter Cushing is lovely. I think his portrayal in this film is good. I think he works with, I don't think he's given quite that much to work with, but I think he does the best he can possibly do, which is excellent because it's Peter Cushing. And I think there's a bit, you maybe see a bit more of that in the second film, a slightly more, I think the tone of the second film is a lot darker anyway, just because it's...
Oh, the second film is much darker, yeah.
Yeah, much more violent, much more action-packed as well. But it doesn't have this kind of commentary that we're discussing now. It's kind of a bit more like a straightforward action story, I'd say. And I kind of did miss that in the second film, but then this one kind of lacks that action element, but does have the kind of the science, what I would expect from a science fiction story, you know.
Because it's Star Trek. It's the original series Star Trek. Here's a world with a political allegory, East and West, going to destroy each other if they don't sort their act out, and let's just deal with the problem through talking, and when that doesn't work, okay, we'll have a bit of a fight. What was interesting to me, because I was the Daleks themselves, which I agree, I think they look fabulous, and Moffat tried to do colourful Daleks, and fans hated them. I actually thought they were great. I thought they looked great. People were like, oh, we don't like this, it's a bit too much like that Peter Cushing film. What was interesting was, for the film, they didn't have lasers, they didn't have ray guns, they had like the fire extinguisher effect. And I was reading, apparently they wanted flamethrowers to come out, but that's a bit too scary for children, so we'll go completely the other way and go with fire extinguishers.
Okay.
Well, because they realised they needed something visual for you to see what they were doing. But I do like when they just crowd around someone and they just cover someone in that kind of smoke. That's really nice and really effective.
Yeah, I think you get a lot more of that in the... I think you see it when they set the traps for the Thals. I quite like... I don't know about the designs for the Thals.
Again, it's very Star Trek series.
I was like...
Bit of blue paint, blonde wig, laughing.
And they're also described as giants, and I'm like, they're about 6 foot, maybe, if that.
Yes, yeah.
And... but I quite like, I like the idea, I love that line where he goes, the Daleks said you were monsters. And it was like, if they think we're monsters, what must they look like? I love that kind of...
That's the best line in the whole film.
Oh, agreed. I think that it's very telling to what Doctor Who is. Mm-hmm. And part of my issue with the film as well was that, Doctor Who's like, you've got to fight, you've got to win this world back. And I'm like, there's not much left. It's this nuclear wasteland. Apart from the Dalek City, which seems, nice enough, with its metallic paper.
They seem to be able to grow some food. But again, that's the problem with Doctor Who, right? Is he's fixing... They fix the immediate problem, then they leave.
Yeah.
What happens?
In a bit.
The ending of this film, where it is literally, goodbye. Goodbye.
Yeah. Here's a lovely cape. Off you go.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Yes,
goodbye.
Well, we've had our fun. Well, what I did like...
It's a low-key ending.
It really is. I do quite like the kind of next adventure tease that they have at the end.
That was fun.
That was a fun little nod, not nod, but they go back to ancient Rome and all the Centurions are running at them. I thought that was fun, but
it made me kind of wish that they'd done more with Cushing's Doctor, where they just weren't doing the Dalek thing. They did original stories, and there's so many great what ifs, because I think that team, that TARDIS crew, had real potential as a set of companions to go. You had this burgeoning romance between Ian and Barbara. You had Susan, with her granddad, and there's great dynamic between them where she's almost, if not smarter than he is in many ways, certainly savvier than he is. And yeah, I kind of wish that they'd done more original stories and could have had more of that darkness and gone more into that, lent into more that Hammer horror vibe.
Yeah, that Amicus. And I think
Amicus,
maybe that might be why Amicus didn't put their name on it, because I think they might have thought, oh, it's going to be anthology horror, or it's going to be horror or something related to that. And maybe they wanted to kind of step away. You know, like Disney has, in America, they have Hulu, and they put a lot of the adult stuff on Hulu, but the kids stuff is for Disney. With over here, obviously, we get
Star and
we get Pam and Tommy's talking penises, and we get Bambi. You know, we get a nice mix of cultures and content, because that's what we do here in England. But yeah, no, I agree, and I think there is definitely, I think what you were saying earlier about the influence of these films on later interpretations of the Doctor, and certainly companions as well, like further down the line, the kind of, there's a lot of the time there is like a kind of a simple bloke as a companion, isn't there? Like an average kind of not like unintelligent, but kind of just like a bit clumsy or a bit.
Well, you need your everyman character who's the viewpoint of your way in.
Absolutely. I think, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the canonicity, and we've talked about it on this show before, how sometimes canon is a yardstick for quality, which I don't think is fair. Sometimes.
I don't think it's fair, no.
And this is not considered canon, but I was reading up on the attempts to make it canon, which sounded really interesting. I don't know if you wanted to tell us about some of those.
Well, I've not actually read up on that. I know you sent me a link, but I was watching the film.
That's okay, don't worry. All right, I can tell you some of them. I can tell you some of them.
I'm fascinated.
So one of them, there's a couple of the Moffat's ideas were that it was a fictional take within the Doctor's world of his adventure. So his original adventure with the Daleks, someone decided to write about it or to sell their story. And then obviously it's gone through the Hollywood machine and it's come out as this. So it's not, obviously he's not from Gallifrey, he's not the Doctor, it's Doctor Who, it's TARDIS. They've gone, yeah, we'll have that'll do. And obviously a bit of creative license. This film has been made, these films have been made. Again, they are based on previous adventures the Doctor has had. And there's some interpretations where they realize that they are fictional characters, Susan and the Doctor. And there's a particularly bloody, this is all on like the TARDIS wiki that I've been reading. And there's one where Susan, so the Doctor Who in this, Peter Cushing, had a former acting role where he had a hammer and a stake. and Roberta Tovey, Susan, is coming out of the fictional, script, because the villain of the piece is the script writer, and she puts a stake through the script writer's heart. There was also going to be a reference in, I think it was when they're in the Black Archive. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
There was going to be, there's a reference to something, but they wanted to get the rights for the posters for those films to reference that the Doctor's adventures had been recorded. But yeah, there's been a lot of different, read up on it, there's more, but those are the ones that come to mind immediately. There's lots of kind of little bits. Again, not technically canon, but there has been attempts and ideas to bridge those two disparate elements from the canon into the non-canon and the canon connecting in those ways. So some of them are a bit wacky and a bit weird, and I think there's a few like prose novels or short stories or comics which also feature a version or something that looks like a Peter Cushing's version of Doctor Who.
It's interesting because canon. Canon. I think in some franchises it really matters, and some franchises it really doesn't. And I think you pick and you choose. And like with Star Wars, I remember when they scrapped the old canon,
which you and I are quite partial to. I used to love those.
I'm still
comics.
a big fan. You all vest those X-wing novels, the Aaron Alston, Mike Stackpole X-wing novels and comics out of my cold dead hands. And I was initially quite annoyed, but then I realised it made absolute sense. If you're bringing back the films, for a wider audience, most people won't have read all of the New Jedi Order books. So all 20 of them that explain why Chewbacca died, saving Han and Leia's 3 children, 2 of which went evil. There was so much canon and content. They couldn't, they'd already had Dark Empire and what else. So it was absolutely the right choice to reboot it. And I think now they have a much tighter canon, as opposed to having to try and fix things that weren't always intended to be part. You'd had the Marvel comics, which contradicted what Dark Horse did. There was already so much stuff that people had to try and fix. And it's the same with Doctor Who, where people hadn't intended some stuff to be canon because it hadn't occurred to them. It hadn't really occurred to them later, 40, 50, 60 years later, people were going to care about these details.
Because they at the time, they were just writing a good story.
They were just writing a good story. And that canon was growing as it went. And some script editors and producers really cared about that, and some did not. And, unit, like Google the unit dating controversy, where certain stories that they either happen in the 60s or the 80s or in what order, and like they jump about in time. It doesn't make sense. And it's almost like it doesn't really matter.
I thought you were gonna talk about the dating lives of the people in unit. I thought there was a controversy there.
That
heavy love triangle or something.
That may well be a spin-off down the line. But even my comic is not part of the official canon. It's part of the worlds of Doctor Who, and there's people who love it and read it. It's written that it's not going to contradict anything. And as soon as the first issue came out, for the trailer for the Blu-ray box set, they did a little kind of thing that had a bit of a follow-up on Paradise Towers that completely contradicted everything I'd written. And I just kind of accepted that. I went, okay, cool. Luckily, the Doctor has a time machine, and there's fixed points in time, and there's points in time that are fluid. So in the Doctor Who, like the Doctor Who has been creating and traveling through multiverses before multiverses were cool. And it's all canon. So it's all canon and it isn't canon. And it's contradictory and it's not contradictory. And it matters or it doesn't matter. And it's up to you how you feel about that and what you want from it and what you want it to be. Stuff will be overwritten or contradicted later, but does it matter? I mean, like the Doctor's met Shakespeare for the first time loads of times, and he's met Mary, Jodie Whittaker had an adventure where she met Mary Shelley, but Paul McGann's audio adventures, Mary Shelley had been a companion of the Doctor for 3 stories, and like the 8th Doctor they'd done the TV movie that hadn't gone any further, but the audio adventures continued the adventures of Paul McGann. The Doctor Who magazine comic strip was doing their own stories, and the BBC books were doing their own stories. And the BBC books, and so much of this individually, like they've taken bits from to form the new TV canon, but it all contradicts itself. Like the novels had a time war before there was a time war. They had. The only thing that they didn't do was the comic was originally going to end with McGann regenerating, and they got the sign off, I think, from Russell T Davies that we want to show that thing, and then they even drew the page. It's in the back of one of the collections, and then they realised chances are something's going to come along and contradict that later, which it did.
Definitely.
Which it did for before they did Day of the Doctor, they did the Night of the Doctor that showed McGann regenerate into John Hurt's War Master. He didn't even War Doctor. He didn't even regenerate into Eccleston. So they decided not to do that because why tie yourself down to that moment? Probably is going to get contradicted later. So yeah, canon. It matters and it doesn't.
Yeah.
And
if the story matters to you, if you like the story, it can be canon to you. Yeah. If you don't, doesn't have to be. Whatever. It's your bag.
And I call this the never say never again of Doctor Who. And there will be people who love Never Say Never Again. They probably like Never Say Never Again more than they like Thunderball. It's the same film.
It is. It genuinely is.
I mean, that's a whole of a rights issue, and we'll talk about that's a whole of a podcast if you've not done that already.
That is. I have not, but that would be interesting. I've not done any James Bond as of yet.
Oh,
so.
Well, I will put myself forward for that discussion.
Well, never say never.
but like we were saying, you know, someone's comic is their first comic, and maybe that was someone's first James Bond film, and then it was there's these other Bond films, and the Bond films again didn't have great continuity really because they were more standalone, and then you have this kind of sliding timeline. In the same way that the Marvel Universe has a sliding timeline, that's why Peter Parker's been 30 odd for the last 20 years because you can't age. I can't even remember what my point was. I think my point was
canon, just canon.
It's canon. It's all canon. It's all good.
It's all good. Anyway, let's move on. Again, we've gone on another massive tangent, but let's talk about.
You can't talk canon and not have a massive.
True. No, that is.
You know, there will be people listening to this. Really angry with what I've just said. No, it does matter. It all matters, except for that bit I don't like. And
yes,
that's it. It's just love what you love and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
If it all fits and all ties together, fantastic. But just enjoy a good story for a good story.
Yeah, I mean, there's been multiple Batman origins now. Like Year One is still held as the ultimate Batman origin story, but I quite like Zero Year as a Batman origin story, and there's been others. So it's fine. You can like both. You can like neither. You can like all of it. Whatever. If you like it, you like it. Anyway,
I mean, Mask of the Phantasm.
Now speaking of an origin story, my Christ, that is a good one. Whichever one you pick or whichever is your definitive version, fair play to you. You know, I am sick of seeing who's the best Batman and who's the best Joker and who's the best Spider-Man online. I could do without seeing that for the rest of my life, because they're all good in their own little ways. Anyway, let's move on to the sequel, which doesn't even have Doctor Who's name in the title, because this was in the midst of Dalek mania at the time. So
Daleks had their own comics and spin-offs, and
yeah, so much. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this one as well? So we've solved Planet Skaro. They've managed to destroy.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
And the Doctor's so kind of oddly passive in that first one in the end, which is why I definitely liked the second one. The Doctor is more active in this, apart from like the 20 odd minutes where they just kind of disappear.
I think there was a lot of problems on this one on set. There was a lot of accidents. So there was one of the stuntmen. He did that fall from the building
onto the rubble.
Onto the rubble, he broke his ankle. The Dalek that gets thrown down the ramp, the actor in there caught on fire. I think the actor that punched a brick through the windscreen, he broke his wrist. Right. And on top of that, Peter Cushing was quite ill during, so he had limited screen time.
Yes.
But yes, apart from those problems, we open with it felt like an Amicus film, because it had like the classic, like dun 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 dun, and it's a bank robbery.
Yeah, I love that. Again, it's another great opening gag where Bernard Cribbin's police officer is attacked by a getaway driver and sees a bank robbery, dazed, confused, sees a police box, goes in, and it's the TARDIS, collapses, cut to credits. I think that's great, cold open. I think that's really nice. And it's a nicer TARDIS. It's a bit more sci-fi. It's a bit more swanky and shiny and polished. And I much preferred this TARDIS. And yeah, again, it's another suit that just gets on with it. And sorry, lad, we've gone in time now. I love that reveal as well. They just, we'll just step outside and it's just desolate. And this film really benefits, I think. The first one feels like it's a set. I mean, the jungle set, the petrified forest is really nice. the Dalek City is nice. There's a sense of some scale as that when they're climbing the mountain. There's a good the matte painting on that.
Oh yeah, I love that.
But that's the only real sense of scale in that whole film is brilliant, big, expansive. Yeah, let me see that. Let me see the Dalek City in full. Let me see the scope of this. And the first one felt. It was a film, but still kind of a TV budget. This second one feels like a film. It feels like a bigger budget thing. There's more pyrotechnics. There's more stunts.
It definitely had a bigger budget. And the Amicus teamed up with Sugar Puffs, no less.
Yes, I noticed. I even wrote down, it was fascinating that when they go to the future, there's this poster that survives on the wall for Sugar Puffs. I was like, okay, it's good to know that in 2150, we're all still eating Sugar Puffs. I didn't realise that they co-financed.
But
Sugar Puffs had done a Doctor Who tie. They'd
That's
done
right.
It
was a competition. Yeah. And that was due to this film. So that was where Amicus got that budget and got that for the film, and were able to make it a bigger, kind of more expansive, more action-packed. And they had the model UFO and stuff, spaceship, and so that was in part due to Sugar Puffs directly, and this was one of the earliest examples of product placement, and it's fairly blatant in a lot of the scenes, like in the warehouse where they find the first dead robot man. He falls out. I don't know how he killed him, and then put loads of boxes in front of him, and then they walk past him and he just falls over. But in the behind that guy's head, again, you can see a box of Sugar Puffs. So even after all these, apocalypse, and they've been bombarded with meteorites and cosmic rays and all this stuff, that the Sugar Puffs have survived the apocalypse, so to speak.
Well, they are, tasty and nutritious and very, very full. Is Sugar Puffs? Do we get any? Are we getting any money off them?
I don't believe so, but I mean, I can try. I'll speak to them. But yeah, hey, Sugar Puffs are great. To have them, lots.
Sugar Puffs will help you survive an alien invasion. Eat Sugar Puffs today.
If you eat enough Sugar Puffs, you'll look like a Dalek on the inside.
We've probably scuppered that now.
Yeah, actually, no, maybe we have now. Oh well. I'll get another sponsor. I'll figure it out. I'll figure out. Sponsors are hard to come by, but I'll figure something out. But yes, and they don't really. Doctor doesn't really explain why they go, and now they're with another assistant. So we've lost Roy Castle and his partner, and the other granddaughter.
But Susan's still there, and this is what I was referring to. So in the original serial, Susan's a little older. She actually leaves with one of the rebels in the TV series. It was actually the first time that a main cast member had left the show, and the Doctor has this wonderful speech, which was then used again in various specials. Ways you said you would go out into the world and prove me right that there's great adventure, and I wish I could. I wasn't paraphrasing it badly. It's a superb speech, and so it's a shame that they obviously they couldn't have this very small child go off with that big old bloke. I mean,
I would say that would.
I mean, even by 60s standards, that's they weren't going to do that. So they had to lose that. And I think that it loses a little bit of that thing that, again, Cushing, I think, would have, if you'd given Cushing a great speech, he'd have nailed that with his Doctor. And yes, he is in it less. He has less screen time in this one. And Cribbins actually has, I think, the majority of the screen time. But when they do use Cushing, they use him well. He is better served, I think, by certainly the third act of this film. He is more actively involved in what happens. That's definitely better in this one.
Yeah, he kind of figures out. So the idea that the Daleks have invaded because they want to get to the metallic core of the Earth. Was that right? I think something like that.
Yeah.
And they're going to use a neutron bomb to stop, or a magnetic bomb or something.
It's another. We've got to stop them. Like they both have very similar third acts, which is stop the bomb.
Yeah, basically.
whilst everyone has a big fight pushing some Daleks around.
Yeah.
Um,
pushing them downstairs and pushing them over. I love how violent, obviously we're like robot characters in things like the X-Men, the animated series. Obviously Wolverine can use his claws on a robot,
but not on a person.
But not on a person. So it was quite interesting to see how quite violent they were towards the Daleks. And I was like, yeah, but I quite enjoy it. It's kind of like, yeah, sure, they're these metallic things. So
there's not just a better sense of scale, which benefits from shooting on, if not location, certainly the Shepperton backlot.
Yeah,
and that if there's loads of exteriors, the action is better. There's because I hadn't, like I said, I hadn't seen the original. I hadn't seen Doctor and the Daleks, but I had seen this before. And I saw it as a kid, and even as a kid, I kind of inherently knew this wasn't quote unquote proper Doctor. I knew that there was something off about it, but the Daleks were still scary, and the stunt team really put their all into their death screams in this film. They are quite, as a kid, I remember there's just lots of people dying and and screaming, and there's better cinematography in this one, I think. Like the first one is all just kind of like lots of high key, like the whole set, whereas this one, there's some wonderful stuff when they're in the mine shaft and the lights are coming up and down. The action, Gordon Fleming's direction is more confident, and like the bit where the truck is driving through the Daleks and just ramming them, that's great, and it's cut. The editing's really nicely paced. The camera work's more dynamic.
I love the bit where they're throwing these bombs, and they're trying to get away with the leader of the resistance, which I quite love that he was in a wheelchair. I thought that was really cool and great kind of representation, because it's something you probably wouldn't have seen in a 60s film, like somebody who has a disability like that, and he goes and sacrifices himself. And I love that he just brings the building down on himself and the Daleks. That looked fantastic. I think making it obviously based on Earth, I think was it kind of adds to a bit more kind of realism, because again, we're not looking at kind of painted faces and stuff, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a set or I mean obviously parts of this are a set, but I think it kind of blends in with the kind of natural kind of London location that they were trying to do, and again, you don't have to worry. You can, and there was so many people, so many cast members just get absolutely obliterated by the Daleks as well. Like it was like I found it like it was shocking in a good way. I was like, this is for kids, and there's just like mass killing of all there's only like one resistance guy and Susan, and then the assistants that kind of survive in there. Those original
resistance people, they just get massacred,
and they're throwing knives at the robot men and stuff, and I quite enjoyed the robot men as a kind of concept. Some of the stuff was weird though. I quite like that they were split into three different groups, so they had three.
That's very classic Doctor Who. Yeah. You've got the team, then split them off into different stories.
Yeah, and I like where they meet the Susan and the Resistance fighter meet a couple of people that are like, you're like, oh yeah, we'll help you, we'll assist you, but they actually betray him to the Daleks, and then the Doctor's trying to figure out what the mine is about, and then Bernard Cribbins is in disguise as the Robot Men, which is one of my favourite segments, is him trying to fit in with the Robot Men.
This
synchronized movements,
comedy routine.
Yeah, that I got a lot out of, because there wasn't as much of that in his character. Obviously, he falls out the door and things, but he was obviously, it was a bit more. I think what you were saying about the original Roy Castle's role in the original actor, the way he
it's more
played
slapstick.
Yeah. So this one was a bit more kind of straight laced with a little bit of slapstick as well. So I think there was something to that. I could believe he was a Bobby. Yeah,
that's it. Making him a copper instead of a bloke off the street gives him a capability that Ian doesn't have in the first film. So yes, he even that thing with the door, it's maybe played as a laugh, but actually it would be just a very genuine. Oh, half the buildings, it's a nice reveal.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Like you were saying, the matte paintings work really well on this, and Yeah, I agree with all those points made about the cinematography, the shots, the action. Again, like I said earlier, I could have done with a bit more kind of, I don't know, maybe social commentary, a bit more to think about. Not that I love the action, I love the adventure aspects, but I thought maybe there could be a bit more like, maybe there was a reason that the Daleks attacked, like we, I don't know, got rid of nuclear bombs or something. I don't know, like some sort of like political allegory that could have gone underneath.
What's this about?
Yeah, exactly.
We know it's about Daleks, but what's it about?
Yeah, what's the subtext? What's the subtext?
Yeah, and I do wonder if more of that was meant to be with Cushing. And after they had to use him,
yeah, maybe because he was, yeah, that could be the case, because that's usually what the Doctor does. Those kind of things, they come out of his mouth in most cases. That from what I've seen anyway. But yeah, maybe that. I mean, was there more of a kind of subtext in the original serial for this one? Or
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember how much of it survives. I mean, again, they are still. I mean, well, there is allegory there, but I think it's never really just
explicit.
Yeah. Because the Daleks are still fascists.
Yeah.
They're still putting people in concentration camps. It is post-war. This is these desolate, destroyed cities.
Very, very, very. There's a lot of Blitz imagery, isn't there?
There's a lot of Blitz imagery, and obviously at the time that would have been still very relevant to people. It's interesting like how many people betray them. And so you have your resistance, and then you have the people who sell them out. You've got
those Nazi sympathizers.
You've got the two women in the hut. You kind of get why, like, the older one betrays them, which is for the food, whereas the other one is just nasty.
Yeah.
And I need to ask Stephen if they in any way inspired a couple of characters in the original Paradise Towers.
Oh, okay.
There's these cannibal old ladies who are very nice to you, but you can't really. They're just trying to fatten you up. I suddenly thought, I wonder if there's any of those characters in this. I mean, maybe there's not. And then you've got the guy who's like the black market guy.
Yeah, kind of con man-esque sort of thing.
Who's just a full-on sociopath the whole time. And he gets a brilliant death. He's like,
yeah.
And they just surround the shed and they just blow it up. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
So I think there is a lot of post-war allegory in this, but it just lacks that. Look at what hatred has done. Look at what will happen if we let.
Yeah, almost like we were too busy warring with each other that we didn't know that we couldn't, defend ourselves against this threat, or the very kind of the Watchmen idea, like, there's these invaders and we've got to team up. If again, spoilers for Watchmen if you've not read or seen Watchmen.
You've had time.
You've had years. You've had years and years and years. But yeah, I think generally there was a bit more. I think again, like that's the key difference between the two for me. I enjoyed both of these films. I enjoyed, again, they're not the Doctor as we know him, but I got a lot of joy out of them. They're very kitsch, they're very of the time, they're very 60s, and you can see that, and that comes through. And I think one of them ages better than the other one. Definitely. I think there is something to be said there. But I think generally, you should watch them, and you should maybe, if you can, grab the Studio Canal releases that will be out in July, or go to the BFI screening with all the guests and stuff, and hear all them speak about all their experiences that we've probably already mentioned as well. Would you, Sean? Do you feel ready to compare the two films directly?
Yeah, I think I am.
I think we're warmed up.
I think we're ready. We're ready.
These films, by the way, are available to rent or buy on iTunes, Amazon, YouTube as well. So they are readily available if you want to get them. I rented them on iTunes myself. So yeah, go out and do that, because they are a lot of fun. And I think if you were of that age when the Daleks were a big thing, or if you just like Doctor Who in general and you want to see this kind of these curios and these cult, because they are kind of
the curios, or just if you're a sci-fi fan or particularly a British sci-fi fan. They are good adventures and they're good romps. And if you are able to divorce yourself from these chains of continuity, they are great stories, and I think they are worth checking out. And there's some funny bits, and there's some quite shocking bits.
I think it's a good mix of everything you would want from something a science fiction film of that era as well.
They're a great double bill.
Absolutely. I 100% watch them back to back. They're only, here's another reason for comparison as well. They're almost exactly the same length as well. 120, 119 minutes. So, and again, like me and Sean were saying, they go at a brisk pace. It doesn't feel like 120 minutes or, 70 minutes, whatever it is. Just go crazy, have a fun time, get your family around. They're very, they're still appropriate, to some degree, I'd say for kids to a degree. There is a lot of action and sometimes violence. Again, watch it before. That's what parents should do. They will watch the film before and then judge it. And then if you want to show it. But
because I wouldn't say they were any more violent or scary than the actual original serial.
No, probably not. But they were still made for kids. And I think there's nothing, a lot of these films I go back and watch and I'm going, oh, that's really problematic, But luckily with these, I didn't spot or nothing came up where I'm like, that's very, very problematic.
Other than just like Barbara in the first film's kind of a bit wet and she's not really given anything to do.
Sure, yeah.
And as well, as I say, I think that both female characters, apart from Susan, are underwritten.
I agree. No, I do agree with that. And again, that's kind of you've got to be aware of the culture at the time and what it was like. But yeah, I think that's probably the main.
But they are smart characters. They're not. Yeah. They're just not given anything to do.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, they are. And again, they're both quality kind of actors as well. Like they give a lot to the roles. And again, and even Peter Cushing to some degree is not given that much to work with either. So I will say that. But I think everybody's doing a great job. Roy Castle, a bit of Cribbings, and everybody's on par. So speaking of that, let's move on to the comparison. So the first category we have to discuss is writing. So which film was better written, do you think?
Well, that's the thing. I like we said, I think the first one as a drama has some more interesting things to say. But I think the second one is more naturally funny. I think that the tension's better. I mean, there's that wonderful scene where Susan has left the message for the doctor, but it's on the door and he doesn't see it. And that's one of...
the automatic, so the sliding automatic door.
The sliding door, so when they come in, they're not going to see it. And
he does. The other guy though does literally look at the door for that entire scene. I was like, how can you not see that? It's massive granddad or grandfather writing in white chalk on that dark green door. How do you not see that?
But that's not a writing problem.
No. It's more of a staging, but he shouldn't have been looking that direction.
He shouldn't.
If he was facing the camera, I would get it. But and if they all just suddenly turned, if they backed up to the door and then turned around or something like that. But yeah, I agree. But yeah, there's some real comedic moments. But yeah, like we were saying, I think it's that those two ideas, the more of the drama and the more of the action film is.
I think if there was a film that married those halves up, you'd have a superb movie as opposed to just two very good ones. So which one? I think that one might be a draw.
Yeah,
for different reasons. I like both for different reasons.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree. I think that's again, what I like about one of them is not what I like about the other one. So it's kind of they're not again written by the same guy as well. Yeah.
No, I said that. I actually think
I
think the second one just ekes it out, just in terms of the Doctor is more active in the third act. The storylines come together more naturally.
Yeah.
And there's that payoff. There's the cold open with the thing, and then it's paid off at the end where they drop Bird and Cribbins.
Yeah, that is nice.
That moment.
That is actually really nice. Yeah, he's like, you're going to drop me off just before the villains, I think he describes them as. The villains do it. And he gets that win. I like that. It's very nice. Like, I'm going to be...
I think it's a better, more complete film.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I think again, I think I enjoyed. Again, I like that it splits off. I like the different adventures and we cut between them, and that they're doing different things. And again, there's one that's a bit more dark and serious. There's another one that's kind of more like the scientific things and figuring stuff out and the detective work, and then there's one that's kind of just pure comedy. So and again, they come together, and they all there's a purpose for all of those stories to come together, and those characters do have a reason for being there and for doing those things. I did think it was quite convenient that Susan was like, well, I imagine my grandfather wouldn't have gone there anyway. He would have gone just straight to the mine. So I don't know why I said we'll meet him there. So it's kind of like, oh, that whole idea that they'll never meet up and they'll never see each other again. They were just like, oh, whatever. We're just going to go straight here anyway.
But it's also a good character thing for her to go, well, if there's lots of Daleks, Grandad wouldn't go there.
Yeah,
go here. And it shows how smart she is. True,
yeah, true. There is that that I will say this. I think with a lot of the Doctor Who stories, there is that thing like, why doesn't he just leave? Like, why doesn't he just go? Why doesn't he just, he could leave at any point, and I think,
and the ending of the second one kind of does that. There's like this unwritten rule in Doctor Who where you don't use the TARDIS to cheat.
Yeah,
you don't go back. You could just go back earlier. The Doctor could just go and stop. He could say, "Oh, by the way, the Daleks going to invade. They're going to wipe out X amount of people on Earth." But he doesn't. Not concerned with that. He's just concerned with
doing the right thing.
Then.
Yeah, it's the moral obligation.
Back. And then he takes Cribbins back, and he doesn't just step on a butterfly. He just runs over with a lawnmower and stops this robbery from happening.
I think I did read when he does that. Someone's in the canon, like trying to fit the canon in. They're like, "Oh, he created a separate timeline. It was a divergent timeline or something." so it's within the Doctor Who universe, but it's a divergent one.
This is something I love. Again, this is a tangent, but this was something I love about the time vortex in Jodie Whittaker's Doctor Who's, when you see that it's this kind of murky time vortex, and then they go into these kind of large cavernous spaces where there's all these branching tunnels that the TARDIS can come down. And I like this multiverse idea of Doctor Who. Of whenever they enter one of these large spaces, that is a moment in time that any of these things are possible futures. And the Doctor decides to visit that one today. That's where the TARDIS is going. So it is a multi. It's why you can have my Paradise Towers comic and also have the little thing that the BBC did that contradicted it. And it's all split off in time. It's either a fixed point or it's not. And, canon continuity, that's how it works in Doctor Who. And that's what makes it fun.
I like that though. I love the idea of kind of multiverses and different timelines and stuff. I've always been fascinated by that and that idea. And I think the possibilities are endless, and the possibilities for storytelling are endless. And I think so they should be. So we shouldn't be locked down into this. Yeah. This is canon, so this is the only way, and this is the only thing.
And so basically, I think to go back to what we say is basically the Doctor's constantly making divergent timelines.
Oh, constantly, yeah, sure.
As soon as the TARDIS lands, anything can happen.
Well, like we were saying, like he's a bit chaotic, a bit reckless, and and I like that part of that character as well. That idea that he is an instrument and an instigator of change, and this is what should happen. This is right, and this is what's going to happen, and we're going to make it that way, or I'm going to help you do that. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to cure this ailment of the universe. But yeah, no, I think I do agree. I think the second one does have script-wise and plot-wise, I think it's tight.
It's a bit tighter.
Yeah, it's tighter and it ties better together at the end, like you said. I think the finale is a bit more engaging and exciting as well. Again, all the action sequences and stuff that we'll talk about in a moment. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it was a tough one, but I think, I agree with you 100%. So next up is probably going to be a bit trickier. It's the acting category.
Ooh. For me, I think it probably just tips into the second one in that it's got a lovely kind of cast of just British character actors, and they've all kind of got some nice stuff to play with. And I think Cribbins is probably just slightly more believable hero than than Castle.
I agree. I think in the second one, it's all about the adventure. And I think you do really need to watch them both together. I don't think you could watch the second one on its own, really. And
no, you kind of got to just watch them. Yeah,
I think you do have to do the double build, because I think all the character building and the ideas and where he comes from, what he does, and those characters and how they relate to them, how they link to the Doctor and Doctor Who is quite integral to that first one. But in this one, it is very much like we're off to the races. This is the adventure. We're here on planet Earth in the future. This is the Daleks are back, and I think it is. I think there's arguably more. Maybe there's more work you have to do in the second one because there's less stuff you're given, like explicitly given to say or to get your character across. Like it's a lot more of a physical eye, because there's lots of long sequences without any dialogue in the second one as well, like just sneaking around or pretending to be a robot man, or obviously long action sequences as well, like driving away from the spaceship and then they blow up the little red truck and things. So I guess in a way the actors are working harder in a sense to get those characters across. But yeah, again, the first one, they're a bit more explicit with who they are, where they're from, what they do, what this is, where we're going, what we're doing. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think because they're very similar films, but this is where they diverge. One is more that's classic Star Trek, the original series, pontificating here's who we are, whereas the other one is more of an action film. I think everyone is great in both films, but they're being asked to do slightly different things. I think in terms of little characters, the second one has some more interesting things. So like we mentioned the Black Marketeer, who's is like Harry Lime meets Satan. He, like, how anyone would even remotely trust him. Like he's just really creepy. But that's cool. That's great. That's really interesting. Like you instantly know you're not meant to like him. And I love that. I love when he betrays the Doctor, and the Doctor goes, "Don't worry, I expected it."
Yes, nice
that's
moment.
Brilliant. That's a lovely the way it's delivered. And I love the two women in the cabin. There's a real glint of malice in their eye, but also sympathy from the older one. And
yeah, I will say the Thals, for example, they're a bit stiff, aren't they?
You've got your two, and then you've got your extras.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, we are pacifists and we don't kill. And, arguably, they're probably more robotic than the Daleks. Like the Daleks have more personality.
It's a bit more stagey, because it's that coming from that tradition of slightly stagier kind of thing. And it's all shot in master shots as well, but I guess we'll talk about that later. I think there's more interesting characters and therefore more interesting performances in the second one.
Yeah. And I think, again, that relatability to it being Earth and these characters not being in silly get-up or, gold waistcoats and things, I think there is something to be said. And I think for me, I didn't necessarily feel, even when they were dying of radiation poisoning in the first one, and they're like, "Oh yes,
ooh,
I didn't realize."
Peaky.
Yeah. It's just I'm not feeling quite myself. And they're like, "Oh, we need this drug," and then they have to get the drug off the Thals.
You know what they needed? Sugar puffs.
That would have done it. That's how we survived, clearly, into 2150 AD. So that's what they needed. Good. That'll stave off the radiation poisoning. It might, survive the radiation, clearly, on 2150 AD. But yeah, I think I felt genuinely like the Earth was in peril and that these characters were in peril in the second one. I did not necessarily feel it in that first one, even when they are getting killed and shot and tricked, and But yeah, I agree. I think Bernard Cribbins is a better, more rounded character than Roy Castle's, because I think Roy Castle is like you have one trait, and that's being clumsy and kind of a happy-go-lucky guy. That's it.
Until you're
no
not. Until suddenly you're the hero.
Yes, here with my brave friend, our brave friend. I was like, what's he done that's brave? Like, other than walk into a TARDIS.
Oh, they're the two most interesting files are the ones that are like, no, I must go. No.
Yes.
Punches him. It's like, no, you've got to do it. They're great. Those two
are good. Yeah, they really go for it. And again, they show the most emotion out of the lot of them. They add some real stakes and drama to what's going on, and lift those sequences. Yeah, and that moment where he falls off, he goes to make the jump, he doesn't make it, he falls off. He's going to drag Bernard Cribbins down. He cuts his own rope. However, he manages to hold on to the cliff. Like that's like. You know,
yeah. And I was like, oh, that's a shame that was such a thing. And it turns out there's a ledge that he was there. Can you come get me? I actually thought that was really funny and that was really nice.
It reminds me of Spider-Man 2 where Aunt May's hanging from the clock tower and she's like, she slips off the brolly and she's like, oh no, I'm going to fall to my death. And actually she just lands on the ledge underneath her.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. So yeah, absolutely. Second one again. So that's two rounds to the sequel, Daleks. And right, the next segment or the next category is the music. So the score or the soundtrack. I did think the first one was, again, very Star Trek-y. It did have a kind of like, ooh. I guess, no, that's just the Doctor Who theme.
Well, that was it. It kind of hints at the Doctor Who theme without ever doing the Doctor Who theme.
Yeah.
But it's orchestral instead of electronic. There's a sense of scale there and a sense also kind of theme.
Yes, definitely.
And leitmotif in that writing. So I think I preferred the score to the first one. Whereas, because the second one I found very chaotic in that it would jump from big dramatic something is happening to as here's something funky and funny happening. But sometimes it would, for a few shots, or for a few seconds, here's a shot of Bernard Cribbins, so it's the kind of funky bum 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 bum. It's like just pick a tone.
Yeah,
pick one.
True. No, I think that is Like I think like you were saying, from shot to shot. So you've got that kind of dark, foreboding music, like when all the bricks are falling on the leader for the Resistance, but then then they turn around and run over the Daleks. It is very funky. The driving. That's that. Like you were doing then. That is. It did chop and change quite a bit. I think there might have been some real hard cuts as well, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, and music. There's a couple of hard cuts. They got Barry Gray in to add some electronics to the score, which sound great. I think both have some really good music in them. I would say tonally as a more cohesive piece, the first score is the stronger of the two.
I definitely really got that atmospheric mood where they're walking through the petrified forest and, it's like, it is dark, it is foreboding, it is, this is not somewhere they should be or should even be looking around or going near. And then you've got the creepy hand on Susie's shoulder and stuff. There was a lot more atmospheric, I think, the first one. And it is very classic sci-fi, it would not, it's very Barbarella or it's very Star Trek.
It's very Alexander Courage. It's very
it's well in that kind of world of what you would expect again from a sci-fi movie of that era and of that time. But again, I'm struggling to remember the second one as much actually, but now that you mention it does seem to kind of come in and out, like very like you said,
because it's so tonally and it's a lot more 60s.
Sure.
It's either Star Trek or it's 60s, kind of loungy, and it's not always, I think, the most appropriate, and it's always constant as well. It's kind of this wall of sound.
I guess it kind of goes with the chaos of the film. It is quite a chaotic film in a good sense. In that it's all out war with the Daleks. Humanity's last stand against them. So I can kind of understand, thematically why they would do something like that and have a soundtrack like that. But I think Sean, you're the seasoned Doctor Who expert, and I think I'm going to agree with your decision there. So
thank you.
No problem, no problem. So next up, this will be an interesting one, cinematography.
For me, I think it's the second one. There's a greater sense of scale. I think the actual camera work is more dynamic and interesting. There's more movement in it. The first one is we're on a set, there's stuff in the way, just the master shot. We'll just stick on the master shot. Whereas there's more better use of close-ups, better use of moving the camera to add to the scenes. I actually think the way that when they're in the lift and then they see the guy before they realise he's been turned into a Robo-Man with the light coming in and out, that's really spooky. That's really good. And there's more of a sense of that in the second one, whereas the first one is, apart from when Susan's running through the petrified forest on her own, and it definitely feels quite horror, everything else just seems kind of very blanket, just like the whole thing.
You very much know you're on a set. Like you're like even watching them climb up and down that little cliff before the opening of the city, the doors and stuff. Like, obviously, again, we know that the budget was boosted for the second one, so there might be something in that to say, in the quality of things. But yeah, I agree. I think it's like that shot alone of the Dalek coming out of the Thames is amazing.
Yeah.
Like where and it's the reveal of the Dalek, just that shot alone, and you're like, oh, what's going on? Where are we? What's happening? And then dun, 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 Daleks, but I destroyed them. It's brilliant. Just like that is iconic alone. And again, like the bit where they come in with the shed, the explosions, the way that the city is depicted, the way that London is depicted in ruins and disheveled, and I could have done with more of that. If anything, I could have done with more of that kind of show us some more kind of famous landmarks, marks in ruin like Big Ben and other places, Trafalgar Square or something.
The model works better. The matte paintings, the way they marry up the mine that they must have built on the backlot in Shepperton with the matte painting of it is really nice. There's some really. I think the only time that doesn't work is after the saucer crashes.
Yeah,
and then it cuts to them on location.
Yeah,
that shot with the model of the saucer coming towards you. You do so. Oh God, that's quite big. Oh God, it's coming. There's a real sense of scale in that, and then that explosion, and
even like the little truck getting blown up by the saucer, and again hanging out that door when he opens the door on like the second or third floor, and he has to dangles out, or that stunt work where he's falling off the building. And again, there's more characters, so it feels like a more lived-in world. It doesn't feel as fake or as again, it's a bit more of a grounded story because it is Earth, it is London. So yeah, I do have to agree with you. I just think, just overall the cinematography. Again, cinematography is by the same guy, but again, we know why it's so much better.
It's a more confident film, the second one. The first one just feels like they're making TV.
Yeah.
With a slightly bigger budget.
Yeah, here we go. This is our version of Doctor Who, and it is a bit staid. It's a bit stale at times. And again, it helps you. And again, the action is a bit more choreographed, a bit more, and the storytelling of that action as well and how it works. And you always know where you are, what's happening, where the characters are going, what they're doing. In that first one, I kind of like, are we in the city? Are we out of the city? What are we doing in the city? Where are we going? Are we following the Thals? Are we following them? It's kind of...
Also, the director hadn't realised that the lights on the Daleks...
Oh, yeah.
They are meant to light up so you know which one is speaking. But in the first one, they're just like going off.
Just going off.
Because they didn't realise. The second one, I think just a better constructed film. It's more, I think the camera works so much better. There's some more expressive lighting, and it feels cinematic in a way that sometimes the first one struggles to.
I agree. So so that is cinematography. So direction. I think we know where this is heading, but what would be your choice for direction of the films?
Well, I think it's got to be the second one. For all the same reasons we just kind of listed, really. I think Fleming knew what he was doing a bit more in terms. I mean, he knew what he was doing as a director, but I mean, like in terms of he clearly understood. I think Doctor Who a bit more, and the Daleks a bit more.
Do you think maybe he related to the story a bit more, or there was a bit more for him?
On Earth?
Yeah, maybe it was more in his wheelhouse, being a bit more of an action-packed story.
I don't think I'd want to say. I don't think I'm qualified enough to speak to that, but I do think. Well, here's the thing: if you have more budget, you've got more time for setups, and you can do more shots.
True. Yeah.
So you're less limited. You can be more creative in that aspect. I mean, not always. I think some of the most creative films are the ones that have less, because you are forced to be more creative. Whereas I feel this is kind of one of those rare instances where a bit more money allowed them to be more daring and more interesting. So yeah, I think it's got to be the second one, and I think you get some better performances out of people.
Yeah,
as well, because obviously directing isn't just. It's getting the performances as well.
I agree. I was just looking up his kind of previous work. And the first thing that springs to mind is the Avengers. So he was a director on the Avengers, which I can definitely see that, especially in the second one, with it being quite action packed and things. So yeah, maybe he felt it was a bit more comfortable, or again, like you said, the bigger budget helped, or that he felt there was less pressure because he had the bigger budget, maybe. Or who knows? But again, I have to agree with you. I think of the two, I definitely enjoyed the second one much more. It was a bit more engaging. I think, like we basically already said anyway. But yeah, the shots are better, the action's better, you follow the story better. It's a bit more relatable. But I do still recommend watching both together back to back, because I think it will make the second one much more of an enriching experience. But I do think both films are good in their own right. But I think we've clearly got a favourite. Yeah,
I think so. I think it's definitely the second one. But like you said, it works best if you've watched the first one.
Absolutely. Right. Well, I think we can call it a day. We've journeyed far and wide in this little TARDIS of ours, and we've come to our decision. And we've gone on many Doctor Who related tangents, but I think Doctor Who fans will enjoy that. And
I don't know. Have you met Doctor Who fans? Like tangents.
What a tangent. Well, I've met Marvel fans, I've met DC fans, and they're.
I know this is a podcast for fans, and I am also a fan. God, we're tedious sometimes.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I bore myself with my own tedium sometimes.
And I think that's the takeaway from this is, who cares if it's not the proper Doctor?
Yeah,
Cushing's great. He has some wonderful moments in both. I wish he'd been given scope to do more. I wish there'd been a third film. But they're fun adventures, and
apparently they bought the rights to do the chase. I believe it's called.
I think there was certainly an early
discussions
for that.
But the second one did not do the box office. The first one did, weirdly enough.
No. I think because the first one probably had the excitement of it being Doctor Who, and then once you go, oh right, it's just doing what the TV series did. Oh, okay.
It's just a remake.
It's just a remake of the TV. So I think they should have done original
stories. Yeah, that would have been interesting. Yeah. But there you are. It did
would
not
have been
happen.
Easier to fit it into canon.
Absolutely. Yes, it would. It would have actually. Yeah.
You could have gone, it's just a different incarnation of the Doctor.
It's a different adventure. It's a different thing. Yeah, that's an idea. It's not. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. But yeah, we didn't. Unfortunately, in another parallel universe, we got that film. But
in that timeline,
that particular timeline, we got it, but we didn't get it in this one. So we can only compare the two. But I really do appreciate you coming on at the last minute. Again, I was supposed to do a podcast with Dennis about Neil Adams and George Perez, but unfortunately, Dennis is a bit under the weather. But Sean has magnanimously put his time aside, being a comic book writer, a teacher, a comedian, you name it. He's everything. And he's managed to find the time to watch these two films and do this podcast with me. So I really do have to thank you for doing that, Sean.
It was an absolute pleasure.
I really enjoyed it. I loved getting stuck into the Doctor Who universe of it all, and the non-Doctor Who universe of it all as well. But where can people find you on social medias, and more importantly, where can they buy your book?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Sean Mason, and that's Sean spelt the proper way, SEAN, and all one word. And what you'll see is lots of me promoting my comics, posting pictures of my cat, and on my Wordle. I'm one of the people who post their Wordle scores and their Hurdle scores and their Moviedle scores, their Posterdle score, and Framed. That's the other one. I'm a man of routine.
So
it's either that or just be constantly angry with the state of the world all the time.
Yeah,
I'm trying to do that less.
Yeah.
So,
but I'm equally as angry. So I understand your pain with all that, and I sometimes do the same. And I also try and do less. I often just say, I'm just happened to be watching this thing today.
There's enough anger in the world.
Exactly.
And and again, just going back to dog fandoms, there's so many just tedious chats in I'm a Star Wars fan, like God, Star Wars fandom, the Doctor Who fandom, these pockets that just constantly just moaning about. I just want, it's fun, just enjoy good stories.
Enjoy what you enjoy.
Enjoy what you enjoy.
Be who you are. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
As long as you're not, a raving homicidal maniac or a racist or something like that.
I mean, ideally though, go.
Don't be those things. Don't be those things.
Go watch something else that I don't want to have to engage with you at all. But
I hope if you are those things, I hope you're not listening. So
yeah, we're all here to.
We don't like you
fun.
guys. We don't like you guys. All those people, pedophiles included, all them horrible people. We don't like them.
The worst.
The worst of the worst. And again, not really what Doctor Who is made for, really.
No, but people who just want to enjoy fun adventures and a love of something, whatever that be, more of that.
Yes.
More of that is good.
Peace, love, and understanding. We'll preach that, much like the Doctor does. But yes, and make sure you go on to Cutaway Comics.
Cutaway Comics, that was the other thing that I will preach, is Cutaway Comics, you find them on Twitter at Cutaway Universe. There was another Cutaway. We ended up with two because we set one up ages ago and then we lost the password.
I've done that. Yeah, I've done that before.
The one that has been used recently is the right one. But also just cutawaycomics.co.uk. You can order the full range from there. So it's not just Paradise Towers. We've done an Amiga series, Lytton. Amiga we've adapted into an audio drama with Brian Blessed.
Wow, really?
Which is really exciting. I got to listen to some of the I didn't write these. I haven't written all of them. I've only written Paradise, but it's a great script that Mark's done, and he adapted it for audio. We got Brian. I got to listen to some of the recording, and Brian was lovely, but he was also very Brian Blessed.
Yeah.
It would be like, here's the line. He goes, oh, swear word. I'm sorry, that was terrible.
I remember we did I won't mention the play we did at a sci-fi festival way back for legal reasons, I'm sure, because another guest told me off for mentioning it and I had to cut it out. But he was there while we were trying to perform signing autographs, and there was a bar, there was a market, there was several restaurants, and all while we're trying to do this play at the same time.
Brian Blessed.
Just we're trying to shout over Brian Blessed, like that. Just it was a bizarre day. We got through it, we did it, but that was definitely an acting challenge for myself, definitely, which I don't think I succeeded in. But I love Brian Blessed and he's great, I hope the sound guy is on it, because otherwise you're going to blow people's ears off with Mr. Blessed.
Yeah,
he is known for being loud.
And like I said, you can get those from the website, and if you order direct from the website, and if you are a Doctor Who fan, we also the comics come with DVDs with new commentaries. We've done some new documentary content, a lot of archive stuff, because our original plans for some of the stuff was hampered by lockdown, so it had to be okay. What So some really great stuff. If you're not interested about any of that, you can also order it from your local comic book store. They can order Paradise Towers in through Diamond, so it is available in stores as well.
Physically.
Buy
physical if you can. Yeah, buy physical if you can. If not, buy digitally. But most of all, buy it, because I can't wait to read it.
Wherever you get it is good and exciting. And
absolutely. And is it Cutaway Comics? Does it do? Is it all kind of Doctor Who adjacent, or is there other original stuff as well?
It's all Doctor Who adjacent at the moment.
Okay.
I can't really say more than that.
Okay. But you know what? It's Doctor Who adjacent. That sounds good to me anyway. So, but I can't wait to see what else comes out and read all about it. So, yes, thank you very much, Sean, and thank you for helping me out once again. I really do appreciate it. I know you've been dying to come back on. I'm glad we found something for you to do, which is something you would have enjoyed. I don't want to force you through something you didn't want to do. So I'm glad we found this. And again, it's all tied in quite well with the release and the book coming out and your comic and everything. So it's all, and all the other Doctor Who announcements.
This is the timeline we were meant to be in.
Absolutely, yes.
This moment,
yeah. This is the true timeline. This is my timeline. I'm happy. I'm in it. I'm happy. I'm stuck where I am. But you never know. I might like to visit another one just for a day trip, something like that.
That'd be nice.
That'd be lovely. But yes, you can find me as always on Facebook at Secret Bores, Twitter it's at Dan_Bores, Instagram it's at SpiderDan Secret Bores. Review, like, share, subscribe, comment, etc. And don't forget to use the hashtag prepare for Prattle when you interact with us. And if you want to join the Prattalion and be briefed in full on the Secret Bores, swing over to Prattle World at SpiderDanandTheSecretBores.com. I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon. I am Jack's Musings, Paul Mellon, Max Burns, Scott Hodgson, Simon Cottam, Mike Burton, and Angry Andy Reviews for their continuing donations. It is very much appreciated and helps Prattle World keep on turning. And if you ever find yourself in a position to help the podcast, please consider it. So that is a goodbye from myself and goodbye from the magnanimous, again, Sean Mason. Wonderful, wonderful man he is. I wish you all the best, Sean.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.